Hi guys, and welcome to a Hector Lecture guide to the fight P5S. This is Proto-Carbuncle. Be aware that there's a mechanic going throughout this whole fight. You'll see immediately that there is a satiety bar that starts at 100 and will slowly tick down over time. This is only going to matter for a single mechanic about halfway through the fight, and so you can safely ignore this. Positions you'll need for this fight include spread positions at standard clock positions. I recommend having your healers east-west. You also are going to need spread positions for a later mechanic that are going to be relative to these larger poison circles. I recommend having your melees getting the uptime spot, and from left to right facing inward, spreading tank, healer, ranged. You need light parties. You need tower priorities. These are tanks and melees taking inner towers, healer and ranged. I recommend partnering one up with each. You can have healers partnered with healers, though. And then just making sure that they know which towers they're taking and which ones they adjust into. In my case, we have H1 and R1 start northwest and look counterclockwise. We have H2 and R2 look northeast and look clockwise until they find a tower. There's also towers that are going to be in an inner position. These are always fixed northeast, southwest, and so you just need a set position where they're going to. The fight starts with Sonic Howl. This is a light hitting raid wide, but still mitigates. Ruby Glow is both a raid wide that hits for moderate damage, and also spawns a set of reflective barriers. The first Ruby Glow pattern is going to divide the arena into quadrants. And the boss is going to cast Topaz Stones. You're always going to get 2 magical stones and 2 poison stones. Now, there are 2 possible patterns here. One involves there being a square that has no stone. That is the safe spot. Have everybody go to that corner, hide, and while the magic ones explode, making their whole quadrant unsafe, the poison ones grow in size and you're far enough away. The other possibility that you could have for this is that every quadrant has a stone. In this case, find the poison that's near in the middle, go behind that one. Once again, the safe spot is in the 4 corner for this one. For this one, you need to be careful to make sure that if you're slow finding the safe spot, that you go around the poison puddle, because stepping in that gives you about 15 seconds of a pretty spicy dot. So you don't want to be in that even for a second. Immediately after this happens, the boss is going to cast Venomous Mass, and you need to have your current main tank go away from the group as they're about to get hit with a cleaving circle AoE tank buster. When this hits, anybody that's within range of them takes huge damage, and also gets 2 debuffs. One's a poison, which just is damage over time, and the other is a physical vuln up, so it requires a tank swap. This will always be followed by Toxic Crunch, which is another hard-hitting tank buster that gives a poison debuff, but this one does not cleave. After this, I recommend getting your groups near to their relative tower positions, as you're about to get 4 towers. 2 of these will spawn inwards, 2 of these will spawn on outer intercardinals. Have your group adjust near to the towers, but don't step in it, because as soon as you do, you get a Toxicosis debuff that does damage over time. The less time you spend in it, the less ticks of damage you get. Stand near to it, and you're going to see pink circles count around. There's 10 of these in total. When you get to about 7 or 8, you should jump in, and you'll only get 1 tick of damage. If you're very tight on timing, you can jump in at 10 and still soak the tower, but take no ticks, but it's not really worth it. You get another one of the tank buster combos, so Venomous Mass, have your other tank provoke, and take their Toxic Crunch with cooldowns. Healers, you really need to help with the bleed. Between the bleed and the auto attacks, these can sometimes hit for 40k per tick in day 1 gear, so really watch your tank's health. Next up is Ruby Glow again, and the second Ruby Glow combo has the arena being divided diagonally down the middle. 2 Topaz Stones will spawn, 1 magic and 1 poison. But for right now, focus on the boss. The boss is about to perform a brand new move called Double Rush. Double Rush, first the boss dashes to a corner. This dash can be dodged by being behind the boss. And then immediately afterwards dashes to the other diagonal corner. That one can't be dodged, will cause huge damage and a knockback, but can be knockback immune. Focus on getting behind the boss for the first dash, mitigating up, pop knockback immunity, and then dodge the crystal is the second thing to worry about. Sometimes you won't have to move because the magic crystal is on the same side as the boss dashes to, but in this case you have to move across as the second dash is happening. You can knockback immune this or ride the knockback. Either way, make sure you're getting knocked back or standing away from the poison so you don't get that Toxicosis debuff. There's a Sonic Howl raid wide to heal up and mitigate through, And pop your mitigation late on this so that it can also cover the next Ruby Glow raid wide. Once again, for Ruby Glow 3, the arena gets split into quadrants. This comes Topaz Clusters. You're about to get 4 sets of magic crystals. 2, then 2, then 3, then 3. And as a result, the amount of safe squares each time is limited to 2, the 2, and then only 1 and 1 again. But there's a pattern to how this works. The first Topaz clusters will spawn on opposite intercardinals, so opposite corners, which means that you can all call odds or evens as your first safe spot. The next set will always spawn on the other 2 squares. So it'll always be odds to evens or evens to odds. You just need to focus on the first set that drops. Afterwards, 3 crystals are going to spawn, and you need to focus very carefully on where this one is, because there's only one safe spot. But as soon as you found that safe spot, from this point onwards, you can do all the other final safe spot is always going to be directly opposite it. So we start out on odds. We dodge to evens. We go to 2, which was the safe spot for 3, the third set. And then we always go diagonally opposite. That's always the dodge for the 4th set. If your group finds it a little bit tricky to be able to see this, you might want to move those 1, 2, 3, 4 waymarks in. It makes it a little bit easier to see what's going on. Next, there's another Tank Buster combo. Mitigate, heal, watch out for the bleed debuff. And when all of this is over, you want to get your boss facing true north, and you want to be in your spread positions. You can have your current tank north, or you can have fixed positions. It's up to you. You're about to get one of 2 mechanics, either Venom Squall or Venom Surge. Venom Squall is dealt with by first spreading, baiting puddles middle, and then stacking on healers. Here's the spread. Go middle to bait those puddles. As soon as you see them go out, note that the stacks go off very late, so hang tight, wait for those to go off. Don't move early. Venom Surge is the exact opposite order. First, the light party stacks, then go middle to bait your puddles. Finally, go out to your spread positions. If you've survived all of this, the boss is going to now again use one of 2 moves. Claw to Tail hits in front 6 times before hitting behind once, so go to the back. Wait for 6 hits. It goes 5 fast and then 1 delayed. 2, 3, 4, 5, wait, 1, and then you go across. As the last hit hits behind. Tail to claw, as you can guess, is the exact opposite of that. Go to the front for 1 hit and then move behind as the boss will claw 6 times in front. The next mechanic is the hard one. This is the one that many will describe as the Party Finder killer. Devour is about to happen. See, that satiety bar has been ticking down over time, and it's about to hit 0. When it happens, the boss starts to cast Devour. Just like in normal mode, you're going to see a bunch of these blue triangle symbols and 1 red bite mark. This is about to show the pattern the boss is about to jump to. The bad news is that it's much more complicated than normal mode. The good news is there's only 2 patterns. There are 2 different maneuvers that the boss can make, and as long as you know each of these dodges, you'll be fine. Be warned, if you get caught by a single one of these AoEs, you are guaranteed to die, and it makes it very difficult to survive the follow-up mechanic, which really is best done with at least 8 people alive. Here's one of the patterns, circle pattern. When discussing this, I'm going to be focusing on pizza slices. These little yellow things that you might have noticed are on the ground, because I find it much easier, instead of focusing on what the boss is, focus on these pizza slices. For circle pattern, from the initial part where we start, you're going to move 2 pizza slices clockwise, and then 5 counterclockwise. This is the starting position, relative. Now I'm going to show you just a trace of what this looks like. First, here's the boss's bounces, and you dodge as soon as you see the first, and now we do our 5 counterclockwise. That's what the group's going to be doing together. Here's what it looks like slowed down with the jumps involved. So the boss's teeth moves around. You see that right about now is when you can see that it's circle pattern. And then it goes back and it does a counterclockwise circle. And we're going to try to stay ahead of that. So the boss becomes untargetable during this. Don't worry about your uptime, but stay near middle as it makes the dodges much quicker. First explosion goes off, and as soon as that happens, we start our 2 clockwise. 1 pizza slice and a 2nd pizza slice. The boss has done its 3rd jump right about now. Here comes the 4th jump. And this is the cue for us to head back the other way. You can count 5, or you can just sprint and keep going counterclockwise, at least 5. But as long as you've made it 5 counterclockwise and you stay ahead of these explosions, you've done the mechanic. You're good to go. So that's circle strat. The other possible strategy that you can see is the zigzag pattern. Now, the zigzag pattern, instead, we're going to start sort of diagonally opposites, and we're going to do 5 counterclockwise, 2 clockwise. Here's where you want to start. The boss is going to start the zigzag pattern. You can see it's not making a circle. That's your cue to go big counterclockwise and then start to go 2 clockwise back. Here's what it looks like if we slow it down. So the zigzag pattern right here is where you can realize it's not doing a circle. It's zigzagging instead. The boss is going to jump around. And now here come the jumps. Wait this time. Unlike the first one, for circle pattern, you can move immediately. For this one, wait for the second explosion and then start to follow the second explosion. This is where we're doing our big counterclockwise movement. And you got to get all the way over here, 5 pizza slices, before that jump happens. And now we're going to go back 2 clockwise. It's a very small clockwise movement. If you've managed to survive all of this, you may have noticed that throughout this, there have been occasional bits where you've been getting a poison debuff. That's because during the jumps, the boss spawns those towers that we had earlier, always in at northeast, south, and west. I don't recommend focusing on them during Devour. Wait until you've done the dodge, and once you're comfy with the dodge, then start to look at the towers, because when the boss has finished its jump, these have actually already ticked down to 7. You've only got 3 seconds to get in these. We need to be very particular with this. We're going to go to our set towers, except our tanks are not going to go in. We need to feed the boss. If you don't feed the boss when satiety is at 0, by giving them an ad that spawns when one of these towers is not soaked, the boss enrages and it's a wipe. So we're going to have 3 people soak their towers, and 1 group is going to deliberately not soak. You can, if you want to, have a single tank take this the AoE that's about to come with an invuln, or you can have both take it with cooldowns, whichever you prefer. But this AoE is baited onto the nearest person to the missed tower. So because we've only soaked those 3 towers, that north tower is going to shoot on an AoE at the nearest players and spawn an ad. As long as there's only 1 ad, the boss is going to eat that ad, become satiated, and you don't have to now worry about the enrage from that. Be aware, if you spawn ads you didn't mean to, they need to be DPS down because they have a quickly start a cast and will explode, giving everybody a damage down. More than 1 ad exploding is a guaranteed wipe. After all this happens, the boss becomes targetable, and we've got a lot of familiar mechanics with 3 new Ruby Glow combos to worry about. Sonic Howl happens here. Raid-wide damage, Ruby Glow for more raid-wide damage, and the boss splits the arena diagonally down the middle. We get Topaz Stones, spawning 5 magic stones. We need to look for the side that has only 2 stones in it. We're going to fix that. The boss starts to cast Venom Pool. This targets healers with Light Party stacks. Specifically, though, this type of Light Party stack is capable of turning a magic stone into a toxic stone. Have your group stack with group 1 near to the inner one and group 2 near to the outer one. I have them positioned to the side, but you can just stand in the AoE. That's perfectly fine. Nothing's going to happen. You'll guarantee that you hit only where you need to hit, and it will not go off and kill you. You don't have to worry about that. You can stand in the orange AoE. When those toxic stocks hit, here comes our poison pools, and only one side is now going to explode. Immediately after this, the boss is going to jump to one corner and cast either Searing Ray or Raging Claw. Searing Ray, like you've seen before in normal mode, is going to get reflected, so you just need to go opposite. But the harder one, the trickier one, is Raging Claw. Raging Claw is physical damage, so it doesn't get reflected. Thus, just like with Searing Ray, you have to go behind it. It's the same hitboxes, but as normal mode, but it hits 6 times. And very quickly afterwards, on some patterns, you may have to get away. There is a safe spot near the edge if you get the least lucky poison pattern like we see here, but bare minimum, your current tank needs to get out, as before these poison puddles disappear, you're going to get a Venomous Mass. They need to be away from the group so they're not going to cleave them, otherwise they need to go wading through the poison and take the dot ticks. Deal with the tank busters as normal. And then prepare for another Ruby Glow, heal and mitigate. Ruby Glow 5 has the arena divided into quadrants. This time we get 2 magic stones and 2 poison stones, and what we've done is we've pre-positioned with our group 1 stacked to the left and group 2 stacked to the right. If you're not already in a square with a poison crystal, adjust into one. There will always be the 2 poisons opposite each other diagonally, so we're already in our safe squares. In a second, the boss is going to cast Venom, Squall, and we're going to have to do the spread puddles stack, but in our very specific safe spots. Because after this cleave goes off, the poison puddles start to grow, and you can see that we spread in those positions I showed at the beginning, with melees taking the uptime spot, tank, healer, range spreading elsewhere. After the spread goes off, bait on the puddles onto where the healer is stacked, and as soon as those puddles go off, everybody moves in to get uptime of the boss for the light party stacks. Really important that you do this correctly and stay alive, because afterwards you get another 4 sets of towers. You can do this with the same priority as you did for the first set, or you can adjust based on who's nearer to what. It's up to you, but there's a lot of time to be able to adjust into these. Just make sure 2 person per stack, and don't move in too early so you don't get more ticks of the dot than you need to. Now, a lot of familiar mechanics. You get either claw to tail or tail to claw. Deal with this exactly as you did beforehand. You get a Venomous Mass and Toxic Crunch Tank Buster combo. You get another Sonic Howl Raid Wad. Before we get our final new mechanic, this is Ruby Glow 6. The arena is split into quadrants, and other than that, this is basically the same as Ruby Glow 4. When the boss casts Topaz Stones, we're going to get 9 stones spawning, 3 in one quadrant, 2 in all the others. Your party just needs to agree on one of the squares that has 2 in it. If you want to, you can always fix this relative to the 3. You can always go diagonally opposite, or just stand in a square. And if that one's got 2, you're good. And if not, rotate clockwise. Up to you. But just like before, we need to do 2 stacks. My group's chosen to go diagonally opposite the 3 here. 1 light party stacks on the inner crystal, the other light party stacks on the outer crystal, and Venom Pool is going to turn these into poison. Try your best to only hit 2 crystals, though to be honest, it really doesn't matter how many you hit, there's going to be room. Afterwards, the boss is going to cast another double rush. Just heal, mitigate, and pop knockback immunity, and go way away from the poison circles, and you're good to go. Don't forget to be behind the boss for the initial hit, so you don't get hit twice, as you're not going to survive that. There's nothing to worry about. There's no movement. It's a very simple mechanic to dodge. Afterwards, you get another Venomous Mass, and this is really the last thing that's kind of uniquely to deal with it, is to find a place to make sure your main tank's not cleaving everyone, because after this, it's all old mechanics. You get a Toxic Crunch follow-up. You get a Sonic Howl Raid Wad. Venom Squall or Venom Surge, so be in spread positions. Claw to tail or tail to claw, deal with that as before. Another Tank Buster combo. And then finally, the boss is going to start to cast Sonic Shatter, and you'll know this is happening when the satiety bar is at about 5. When it's about to get down to 0, that's essentially a nice little visual way to see when you're nearing your enrage. Sonic Shatter hits for a series of raid wides, 5 in total. After all 5 of them have gone off, the boss does 1 final cast of Acidic Slaver, which serves as the enrage. That's everything to this fight. Thank you so much for watching my guide. I hope you found this useful. This is a Day 1 video with Day 1 strats. I have no doubt with mechanics like Devour, these will eventually be improved. So if you've got better ways of doing these mechanics, I'd love to hear it. Please let me know. Give me any comments, tips, suggestions that you have in the comment section. Thanks so much, guys, for watching. Take care.